Memories of a Catholic Girlhood, first published in 1957 by Harvest Harcourt Brace Jovanovich, is a collection of autobiographical essays by acclaimed American author Mary McCarthy. Comprising 8 vivid sketches from her youth, the book traces McCarthy's shifting relationship with religion, not as a tale of spiritual awakening, but as a journey marked by doubt, confusion, and the search for meaning amid personal upheaval. Rather than presenting a seamless narrative of religious discovery, McCarthy focuses on the contradictions and uncertainties that shaped her girlhood. In the preface, she openly questions the reliability of memory, especially her own, acknowledging that many of the details she recounts may be colored by imagination. While she admits it is nearly impossible to recall entire conversations or faces from decades past with precision, she asserts that the emotional truth of the essays remains intact. To further explore this tension between memory and fact, McCarthy adds reflective postscripts to several chapters, wrestling with the accuracy of specific moments and offering insight into the fallibility of recollection itself. The book begins with the event that abruptly reshaped McCarthy's world and set her faith journey in motion, the 1918 flu epidemic. During the outbreak, her paternal grandparents in Minneapolis demanded that her father, who had been financially dependent on them, return with his family from Seattle. The journey proved fateful. Shortly after their arrival, both of McCarthy's parents died of the flu, leaving 6-year-old Mary and her 3 younger brothers orphaned. What followed was a series of displacements as the children were passed from one relative to another, seeking security but finding only fragmented interpretations of religion. Their first stop was with their devout Aunt Margaret and Uncle Myers, whose stern Catholicism was matched by a harsh household. Margaret believed in discipline over comfort, parsnips and prunes instead of toys or affection, while Myers imposed brutal punishments under the guise of saving Mary's soul. Eventually, McCarthy's maternal grandparents intervened, taking her back to Seattle. Her brothers, however, were left behind in a boarding school in Minneapolis. Throughout these formative years, McCarthy encountered various expressions of faith, each filtered through the rigid or compassionate temperaments of the adults around her. What emerges is a portrait not only of a girl navigating trauma, loss, and growing skepticism, but also of a writer reflecting deeply on the intersection of memory, identity, and belief. In Seattle, Mary McCarthy found herself in a radically different environment under the care of her maternal grandparents. Her Presbyterian grandfather, Harold Preston, and his Jewish wife, Augusta. Their home offered a more open and nurturing atmosphere than the rigid Catholic households she had previously known. Harold, a prominent attorney and progressive thinker, became a formative influence on McCarthy. He introduced her to liberal politics and drafted one of the nation's earliest workers' compensation laws, shaping her intellectual and moral outlook. However, McCarthy's time in the Preston household was eventually interrupted when she was enrolled in a Catholic boarding school. Though less physically harsh than her earlier experiences with Aunt Margaret, the convent school's quiet discipline and rigid religious rituals left her disillusioned. The faith that had once clung to her, rooted in fear, formality, and obligation, began to crumble. She pleaded with Harold to let her transfer to an Episcopalian boarding school, a request he granted. Yet this transition brought its own challenges, coinciding with McCarthy's growing awareness of her sexuality and emotional desires. As she began to explore her identity, her connection to religion further eroded, and she quietly adopted a private, unspoken atheism. Later, a summer spent in Yellowstone Park marked another turning point. There, she met a married pharmacist who introduced her to whiskey, an initiation into adult pleasures that would come to symbolize a broader liberation. She also bought her first book, a deluxe edition by fantasy writer James Branch Cabell, sparking what would become a lifelong love of literature. In this expansive landscape of the American West, McCarthy discovered a different kind of ecstasy, less religious than aesthetic, sensual, and intellectual. The final essay in the collection centers on her maternal grandmother, Augusta Morgenstern. It serves as both tribute and inquiry, a layered portrait of a woman McCarthy deeply admired, yet struggled to understand. She reconstructs the daily rituals that defined Augusta's life, capturing the mix of tenderness, eccentricity, and strength that made her both endearing and enigmatic. McCarthy's feelings toward her grandmother veer close to reverence, and in this devotion, one senses a vestige of the religious feeling that had otherwise faded. Ultimately, Memories of a Catholic Girlhood is not an embrace of Catholicism, but a reckoning with it. In the preface, McCarthy confesses her enduring doubt about the existence of God. Yet the memoir is filled with moments of grace and meaning drawn from other sources. Harold's compassion and intellect, her bodily awakening, her early experiences with desire and autonomy, her growing passion for literature, and her deep affection for Augusta. These too become expressions of belief, secular sacraments, in a life shaped more by inquiry than by doctrine. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.